What happens when you finish last in a race? Most people would think it would be a sign of failure, even defeat. But let me tell you, my friends, a couple weeks ago, I finished dead last in a marathon, and it was one of the most incredible experiences of my life. Hey, this is Coach Lisa from the Running University, helping people celebrate finish lines they never thought possible. Also helping you put the fun and joy in running for the rest of your life. I really wanted to share this experience with you. Now, it's not my first time being last in a race, okay? And so I'm going to tell you why this one was different. But first of all, my very first 50 miler at Antelope Canyon, the cutoff was 15 hours, and this was the closest I've ever made it at a race. The cutoff was 15 hours. My final time was 14 hours, 59 minutes, and 48 seconds, meaning I had 12 seconds left to finish that. And very similar experience, but then the other one I had was at Crown King earlier this year. Actually, that video you could go check out here. I was with Sam, one of my runners. We weren't dead last, but we finished within 3 to 4 minutes of the cutoff. So some of the aha moments I'm going to share with you here will be, similar to those. And then I also had another one from last year at, not this same race, but it was also up in Silverton, Colorado. And you can see that video here. That was actually kind of like a fun finish. We didn't cut it close with the cutoffs because we had plenty of time, but we were the last people to finish because we were just having fun and didn't really care. But this one was very different. So first of all, just some quick history on this. It's a Silverton Marathon run by 𝙀𝙀 Running, one of my favorite race companies. And I'm actually on race number 98. So this marathon was race number 97 with 𝙀𝙀, because 98 was Kendall, 99 Javelina Hangover, and then this year my 100K at Javelina 100 will be my 100th 𝙀𝙀 race. But I picked this race. It's absolutely gorgeous. I've done this marathon before. I absolutely love it. It's one of the prettiest races ever. But also I'm training for Trans Rockies, and even though I'm volunteering, I'm part of Dawn Patrol, I'm planning on doing the entire race, and I needed altitude training. I needed to get some elevation training as well. So I picked this race. And I had done it before. So last time I did it, there's always a 10-hour cutoff, and I did it in 9 hours and 10 minutes last time. Now, 2 years ago, I was training for my first Trans Rockies race, and I was in much better shape than I am now. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say much. I'm about maybe 15 pounds heavier than I was then. And also, I was just training a little bit more than I have been. Just because of different circumstances. But so I know I'm not going to do the same time. I was hoping that maybe I could do 9.5 hours going into this. So, and the race is hard, okay? Like usually my best time on a marathon is like a 4:59. So that is my best time, but this race gives you plenty of time because not only are you starting a little bit over 9,000 feet of elevation, but the highest point at the race is California Pass, which is almost at 13,000 feet. And so you've got a good, just about 5,000 feet of elevation gain during the race. And the hardest part is like the last mile up to that point at 13,000 feet because the elevation, and also it's where most of the elevation is, but also the altitude. And I always say it's just a different kind of hard. Right? I finished the race in 9:53:31. Okay, so I basically had, what is that, 6.5 minutes? Is that right? Whatever. Yeah, I guess that was 6.5 minutes. The guy who won the race did it in 3 hours, 41 minutes, and 40 seconds. So we're looking at it took me 3 times longer than what he did, right? Now, mind you, again, these are elite people. It's a different kind of hard. I can't pretend to even imagine doing this race in that amount of time. But if you think about it from a difficulty standpoint, I was out there 3 times longer, not only physically, but mentally. So again, a different kind of hard. So I learned some really good lessons on this race, and I'm just going to give you the quickest recap of how it went. And then I'll give you some of these aha moments at the end, because I think these are really good and they'll help inspire you as well as to not worry about what your pace is. This was a TRU TRIBE race. I had a big group the last couple of years. For some reason, we had a small one this year. And Meg and Fiona were also doing the marathon. It was their first one. They've already done a 50K. And they're also training for Trans Rockies, and they're faster than me. So we started out together, and then they went ahead. Of course, I told them to go ahead. I started out with Joan, one of my good friends, who also is training for Trans Rockies right now. And she's the one who, Trans Rockies had been a bucket list race. And she's the one who turned me on to going to volunteer for them. And then we had a chance to run the race on volunteer credits, which was amazing. But anyway, so we started the race, and again, we're already in the elevation, and you know, I struggled at the beginning just a little bit getting used to the altitude. I ran a little bit, and we would run a little bit just for little short periods, but Joan and I stuck together, you know, and we were talking, taking pictures, enjoying the scenery. I know in my head I had the goal of finishing the race. I did want to do the marathon because I really wanted to get this training in, as just a way to prove to myself that, you know, that I'm heading in the right direction. Trans Rockies is still, you know, 5 weeks away. So it was kind of like just a good check for me. And Joan wasn't as concerned about it. So at one point, you know, she basically decided that she just was done. So she waited to get picked up. And I decided at this point, I need to keep moving, because I started thinking about the cutoff. Wasn't really worried at the beginning because, again, I finished in 9:10. I didn't think I'd be that far off. Started a little slower than I remember starting last time, but I was thinking like this would help me conserve energy so I wouldn't be as tired. And when I started calculating it in my head, and I started thinking, oh, the first cutoff at California Pass, which is at 16 miles, highest point, is 2:30. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, but the race ends at 5. So that means I have a little over 10 miles to do in a little over 2 hours. Doable, but I knew I'd be tired, and I was starting to get really worried that that wouldn't be enough. So I really started, you know, going, I'm going to say as fast as I can. I had my poles going uphill, but was really hyper-focused, using my technique to get me up the hill. Starting to get annoyed because there's Jeeps on the road, not a ton of them, but enough to, like, you have to move over. And again, I'm on a mission trying to get this done. Get up to California Pass well within the cutoff time. I think I had 45 minutes. And, you know, refueled, got some stuff, and then started heading down. I forgot about the false summit, so you go down and then you have to go back up again. I thought I was done with the uphill. But actually, once we started going downhill again, and I say we, me, myself, and I was by myself, I forgot how steep that first 2 or 3 miles downhill is. My least favorite type of running is steep downhill. So even though I had my poles, it's just hard to really get some momentum. It was rocky, so I was kind of sliding. And, you know, from the corner of my eye, I'm afraid of heights, so some parts are a little bit like, oh, don't look that way. So that 2 or 3 miles going downhill was a mental struggle. I had to really, you know, I was talking to myself a ton. I was like, come on, you can do this. As soon as we get done through this part, you know, the downhill is going to be there. So this is where I really started, again, looking at my watch. I had my phone on airplane mode this whole time because I didn't want to kill the battery. And I had checked in a couple of times, but I didn't have service. So as much as I wanted to do an Instagram live, like I usually like to do, or check in, you know, sometimes I would take my phone off to check in. Nobody was texting me. Again, I didn't have service. I decided at this point, keep the phone off, because the phone can distract me if somebody texts me. And I was at the point where I had realized that literally I was going to be cutting it super, super close. Like literally that close, where I just didn't think I was going to do it. As a matter of fact, a couple of times I started calculating, I looked at it and I'm like, there's just no way. Like, I'm not going to make it. And the goal in my head wasn't 26.2 miles. It was 27.9. Why? Because my watch from last year, I went to my Garmin to check my stats. said it was 27.9. And I love Aravaipa, but we call them Aravaipa miles. And I thought, well, shoot, obviously it's a little longer. And I get it. You can't always measure a trail exactly. So in my head, I wasn't shooting for 26.2. I was shooting for 27.9. Now, they were also going to maybe change the course at the beginning of the race because of the snow that was there. And I'll be doing another vlog video about the race itself and kind of giving you more scenery. This video is really just about, you know, being dead last at this race. So I kept talking to myself, and, you know, there had been a guy that I saw up at California Pass. So again, he was in front of me, and every once in a while I'd see him kind of like bent over before we got to that point, and then just kind of, how you doing? You know, when we got up there, he's like, I'm fine, I'm not feeling good, nausea, the altitude, very common stuff. But then he kind of took off, and, you know, I could see him mostly. When we got on that downhill, I kind of lost him. So, but he was kind of like my ichi, as we would say in chi running, where he was, you know, I would look at him and kind of use him to help me, you know, keep moving forward. Then I got to the last aid station, which I think at that point I had maybe 4 miles to go, or 6 miles. I think it was 6 miles. Regardless, I knew that at this point, in order to get this done in time, I had to average 15-minute miles, which sounds easy, right? Like no big deal, especially now we're on a runnable downhill, which is totally my jam. But as I was running downhill, again, I had no pain thanks to chi running and chi walking. Nothing hurt physically, but I was exhausted mentally, and I was also exhausted physically. Like my legs were heavy and tired. So it was not easy to carry a 15-minute mile. And at this point, of course, I'm like, I have to keep this 15-minute mile. If I stop to pee, it's going to slow me down. And then I'm going to have to make that time up. So I didn't stop to do that. The one time I did stop outside of that aid station was also to get a rock out of my shoe because it was bugging me. And I'm like, if I don't take this out, I can't go another hour and a half. I'm going to end up with blisters or some injury. So I stopped to take the rock out of my shoe, which I'm glad that I did. But that last really 2 hours was me in my head going through all the things that I could think of to keep myself going. Again, a couple of times I just stopped and I was like, no, not going to happen. And then I got it together. I was like, no, come on, you can do this. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of self-talk that I was doing. And then I started, you know, I knew I was getting closer, and again, cutting it close the whole time. And I've been DNF before. As a matter of fact, you can go to this video to hear about a DNF, which is a did not finish. And I'm not really that concerned about that either, but because I had worked so hard at this point, I was on a mission. Like I had to finish this race by the cutoff of 10 hours. So I finally catch up to the guy that I had seen earlier, and we're about a couple miles out, and I get to him, I'm like, hey, you know, do you realize we only have like a half hour to get these last 2 miles in? You know, and he looks at me and he's like, well, I'm doing the 50K. I have 10.5 hours. I was like, dang it. So he's like, well, it's okay. Come on, let's go do this. You know, he kind of got me motivated. And then I was like, no, if you don't have to, don't worry about it. I knew he wasn't feeling good. I wish I would have got his name. I guess I could go check on Ultrasina, but that little bit, he really inspired me to get going. So then he stayed back. And then I looked down and I could see the finish line because I'm up on the top of the mountain, but I could see the finish line. I knew where I was, and I thought, oh my God, I don't see anybody down there. I'm like, where are all my friends? And then, you know, maybe about a minute later, then they saw me and they started yelling and screaming for me. So then I was like, okay, I can do this. And because of that, again, I'm looking at my watch going, I'm not going to make it in time. You know, that I was like thinking I was seconds away, like my Antelope Canyon. And, you know, I start going, they're making a tunnel for me, which is awesome. You know, and I'm going through, and Joan was like, you're fine, you've got time. And I was like, at this point, I didn't know what the heck was going on. So I finished. Whoo, a super exciting finish. That video is going to be coming up here, showing you that. And it was like a 9:53:31 is when I had finished. So I did have a little extra time. And when I looked at my watch, it was 27.1, not 27.9. So apparently, maybe I had walked around a little bit 2 years ago and forgot to turn my watch off. So You know, I guess that was good, but in my head I was like, dang it, I actually could have chilled out. I could have even peed. But I'm glad that, you know, it ended the way that I did. I did end up being the last person to finish, and I'm damn proud of it because it was truly one of my hardest efforts. So now I just want to share with you, that's the story of how it all happened, but just some little key things that I feel are very important that I want to impart with you, that hopefully, again, it'll be just a sense of inspiration. But one of the first learning lessons for me on this was the beauty of the struggle. I mean, it's rare that I'm struggling in a race. I know I just did a video not too long ago about my last one. But I practice mindset, so I feel like I'm usually pretty good about being able to get myself out of mentally tough situations. But it was like that last 2 hours especially, I was very self-aware of what was happening. So I was, as much as I was frustrated and I was trying to, you know, get this all done, there was beauty in this process of me working so hard to finish it. I normally, again, I don't struggle. I very, you know, to me, I say I race, but I'm not really racing. I'm just doing training runs. I'm just out there. I don't really race. I don't give it my, you know, 200%, because that's not why I run. That's not enjoyable to me, but I had to this time. So that to me was actually just really cool to see how it felt to really, you know, struggle, but really be able to get through it as well. The other big part really was this whole mindset practice. You know, it's very important to practice, you know, to train for a race physically. Again, technique, getting the miles in, getting physically prepared helps prevent the injuries, but you have to get mentally prepared also. And so I always say, working on your mindset is so important, and really that's what I was doing a majority of this race, right? I was overcoming self-doubt. There were several times, as I said, I didn't think I was going to make it, but you know, I kept pushing and talking to myself, right? And the journey, like the struggle, that struggle I was just talking about, like being able to work through it, you know, was such, just really made me feel good to know that I was practicing doing this really hard thing that I know is not only going to help me for another hard race I'm going to have, but also for life. Like, that's the great thing about running, right? Is that all the lessons you learn in running just carry over into your life. You know, the other really important thing that you should always make sure to do, we do this every Wednesday in the tribe via a post, but it's like celebrating your small wins. So I knew I had this long goal to get to the end at the finish line, but you know, as soon as I got up to California Pass, that was like a huge win. You know, it was like so hard, made it to the top, got there within the cutoff. You know, that was probably one of my first wins that I was like, okay, like, you know, I got this. But really making sure, doesn't matter how small it is, those little small wins keep adding up. And again, it's part of having a growth mindset. Celebrating your wins is really important. Okay. And then really this whole mindfulness practice around celebrating the wins. So while I was celebrating the wins and I was thinking of things, you know, to help me stay positive, I was thinking about gratitude, how grateful I was to be out in this beautiful area. I was thinking about the people that I was with. You know, I always go back to my ancestors and I think about, you know, the people who have passed away in my life, you know, my grandparents, you know, just again, that's where I just go. So that whole mindfulness piece and being very self-aware of where I am in the moment, is so important for me during this race and really helped me get through it. Another really big one, and I talked a little bit about this, is just the running community is amazing. And like just looking around, and when you have the support of people, you know, I have my tribe, which is a huge sense of support and inspiration for me. But even during the race, right, not only did I was alone quite a bit, at least for the second half. But, you know, the aid station staff and volunteers, the Aravaipa staff, you know, they're there to motivate you, and they were like, you can do this, you know. And again, that guy at the very end, it was just, I talked to him for not even 30 seconds maybe, but it was just enough. So to always remember and be grateful for the people that surround you and support you in whatever that you're doing, was also just a really good reminder and an aha moment for me, is how important that level of support is. And then, you know, one of my favorite things, and I say this is another video I did, is redefining success. right? Like, I was finished last, but damn, that was one of the most successful races I ever had. Most people, when it comes to running, the only measure of success they use is their pace, right? I don't even care about my pace most of the time. So to be able to, you're writing your own running story, it's your journey. How do you want to define success, right? My key things of success are not being injured. That's like the number one thing, which I felt great the whole time. Again, I was tired, but no injuries. Is the fun factor, which outside of the mental struggle, it was a blast. It was a beautiful course. Right, the fun factor, and then just feeling good. Again, as tired as I was, I felt good. I felt great. So I finished that race feeling really good, exhausted, but still feeling good. So you can really set what your level of success is, or what you want to measure your success is. It doesn't have to be pace. It can be whatever you want it to be. And then last but not least, I knew that I was going through this process, that I was going to do a video about it, because I hopefully can inspire you, right? I know there's a lot of people, especially in my community, because I am more of a back of the pack coach, but there's a lot of people that, you know, we struggle. It's harder for us. We take 3 times as long as the winners do. But at the same time, we're still out there. We're still doing it. It's taking us longer. And again, is it harder? Maybe. So if I can inspire you as you're watching this to not worry about your pace and just go out there and give it a try, trust me, you will not regret it. So there you have it. You know, embrace your challenges, you know, push through your limits, and be so proud of yourself that, you know, that you can have an amazing experience. And hey, if you enjoyed this video and you found it inspiring, you know, go ahead and like it, and also subscribe to my channel so you find out when I get out my videos. They're usually weekly. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. If you've ever been DFL, and we say dead fucking last in a race, you know, let me know at the bottom. How was it, right? And if you haven't been, that's okay too. All right, peace out.